To understand what happiness felt like a millennium ago, you must first strip away every single layer of the world you currently inhabit. Forget the concept of career goals, mental health days, digital entertainment, or even the basic certainty that food will be available tomorrow. In the year 1024, happiness was not a destination or a state of mind you worked toward through self-actualization. It was a rare, fleeting, and often violent contrast to the crushing weight of daily survival. For the medieval man and woman, happiness was not the presence of luxury. It was the magnificent, temporary absence of suffering. Imagine waking up in a world of absolute silence, broken only by the stirrings of livestock and the crackle of a dying hearth. For a peasant in the Middle Ages, the ultimate form of happiness was security, a concept so fragile it could be shattered by a week of heavy rain or the whim of a local lord. Happiness was the sight of a full granary after the harvest. It was the physical weight of grain in the hand, knowing that for the next 6 months, the specter of starvation would not be knocking at your door. This wasn't just satisfaction. It was a visceral, heart-pounding euphoria. To have enough calories to survive the winter was the medieval equivalent of winning a multi-million-dollar lottery today. The happiness of 1,000 years ago was intensely sensory and physical. We live in a world of constant stimulation, but back then, the world was dark, cold, and quiet. This meant that small comforts triggered explosions of joy that we can barely comprehend. The first true warmth of the spring sun on your skin, after 5 months of shivering in a damp, smoke-filled hut, wasn't just a change in weather. It was a resurrection. The taste of fresh meat during a feast day, dripping with fat and seasoned with salt, a commodity more precious than gold, was a sensory overload that people would talk about for an entire year. Happiness was the smell of wood smoke when you were lost in the woods, the feeling of dry wool socks, and the moment the agonizing toothache you've endured for weeks finally subsides into a dull throb. Socially, happiness was found in the absolute erasure of the self. Today, we seek happiness in being unique, but 1,000 years ago, safety and joy were found in belonging. Happiness was the communal roar of a village festival. It was the rare permission from the church to stop working, to lay down the plow and the scythe, and to simply be human. Under the shadow of the great stone cathedrals, the common people found a wild, desperate joy in dancing, drinking thin, sour ale, and sharing stories. In those moments, the rigid hierarchy of the world vanished. For a few hours, you weren't just a tenant or a serf. You were part of a living, breathing tribe. This collective ecstasy was a vital survival mechanism, a way to vent the pressure of a life defined by toil. We must also talk about the happiness of the spirit. To the medieval mind, the physical world was a thin, decaying veil, and the real world lay beyond. There was a profound, quiet happiness found in the certainty of faith. While we struggle with the anxiety of an uncertain future, the person of 1,000 years ago had the comfort of absolute answers. Every hardship had a purpose, and every pain was a step toward a golden eternity. The sight of a stained glass window, glowing with colors that didn't exist in the drab brown and gray reality of their daily lives, provided a glimpse of heaven that moved grown men to tears of pure joy. It was the happiness of hope, the unshakable belief that no matter how brutal this life was, a world of peace was waiting just around the corner. Happiness was also found in the micro-victories over a hostile nature. Finding a hive of wild honey in the forest was a miracle. The birth of a healthy calf was a reason for celebration. Seeing your child reach their 10th birthday was a triumph against the odds of a world that tried to kill them every single day. Their happiness was grounded in the immediate, the tangible, and the essential. In our modern age, we are burdened by the tyranny of choice. We are unhappy because we have too many options and not enough time. But 1,000 years ago, the lack of choice made the moments of grace feel divine. When life is a constant battle against the elements, the absence of a storm is a blessing. When hunger is a constant companion, a piece of white bread is a masterpiece. We look back at them and see poverty and hardship, but they looked at a sunset after a hard day's work and felt a level of gratitude that we, in our climate-controlled comfort, may never truly understand. Their happiness was a flame kept alive in a hurricane, small, flickering, but incredibly bright because of the darkness that surrounded it. So as we look back across 1,000 years, we have to ask ourselves a difficult question. Have we actually become happier, or have we just become more comfortable? We have traded the raw, agonizing stakes of survival for a sterile, constant anxiety. We no longer fear the wolf at the door or the failed harvest, but we are haunted by the void of not having enough in a world of infinite excess. The medieval person knew exactly what they were fighting for. Their joy was sharp because their pain was deep. They didn't have the luxury of an existential crisis. They were too busy being grateful for the miracle of a warm blanket and a sunrise. Perhaps the tragedy of the modern world is that we have conquered the cold, the hunger, and the darkness, only to lose the ability to feel the same electric pulse of gratitude for the simple fact of being alive. When you turn off this screen and step back into your world of instant gratification and endless choices, remember the peasant of the year 1024. Remember that every breath you take without pain, every meal you eat without fear, and every night you sleep in safety was once the ultimate dream of your ancestors. Maybe true happiness isn't about getting what you want. It's about finally realizing just how much you already have. Because 1,000 years ago, you wouldn't be searching for happiness. You would be living it, one hard-won breath at a time.